Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name's Tony. Thank you for joining us live. If you're catching us live, and if you're taking the time on the replay, then thanks for taking the time. This, Star Trek New Worlds, is a 4X turn-based strategy game that we play online here with you, or at least we share with you here online with Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitch. We play this using the Federation and Empire rule set as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. And we use a platform called Vassal, which you will see in a moment, to show you the maps and share the exciting sort of strategy that evolves turn after turn after turn. Yes, today is going to be a very interesting day because in today's episode we are going to talk about quite a few things. Not only are we talking about the David and Goliath, which of course is on that thumbnail, the horrible Hydrans trying to stomp the minor empire of the Klingons, and we'll go over that combat in a moment. Also, we're going to talk about the Space Tigers getting poked, ironically, by Klingons as well, more pirates, and of course, we're going to go around the maps and check in on all the empires. Good news is that this will be one of the last times that we do this because, or at least in the way that we're doing it now, because most likely next week we'll be dealing with one big map. That's just based on the fact that all the different factions are getting so close or have already bumped into each other, and there's only a couple minor stragglers that are kind of staying out on the periphery. And once we sort those guys out, I'm one of them, then will be one big giant map. And of course, for the ease of the GM and for making this whole process just simpler for everybody, we'll just merge the maps and you'll be able to get to see one big map and where everybody's at. So a couple things before we get started here. You'll notice a couple things. One, I want to welcome Barney Cornett, who's our latest subscriber. You can see that down below, as well as you'll notice this other little thing over... Oh my goodness. It's harder when you're doing the mirror image of yourself. So right over there, you'll see the support us at Ko-fi or Ko-fi.com/New World. So if you head over to that link, what you can do is you can buy us a coffee, keep us caffeinated during these wonderful times. And of course, if you like what we're doing here, then of course, please consider subscribing, sharing this content with, tell two friends. And if you're so inclined, then please consider going over to that link, Ko-fi, and either buying us a one-time coffee, or you can also set up, there's a couple tiers there. You can support us monthly if that's something you'd like. And in response to what we mentioned last week about access to the Discord channel, if you would like to join our Discord channel and be part of the fun, there is a tier there where you can do that as well. So please feel free to head over to that link down below. And anytime that you do decide, that is, to add a coffee or something along those lines, then one of these little alerts will occur. Once I get myself, hold on, here we are, stream alerts. So when you see this, boom, then someone has decided to buy us a coffee. Little photon fire there, and away we go. So that if you're watching us live and you do it, you'll see that the message that you've typed in there pop up and cruise up the screen as you saw there. And like I say, if you're deciding to buy us a coffee, great. If you are deciding to subscribe, great. If you're just deciding to enjoy this video and watch it, that's great too. So with all that said, let's get down to some of the fun and exciting stuff that we're going to do today. First, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a little bit of the map, but then we're going to quickly cut to a play-by-play description of the combat as we saw it in the David and Goliath battle that occurred between the Hydrans and the Klingons. Now, you'll see in a moment here why we call it a David and Goliath battle. Not only is it because one is a player empire, one is a non-player character or non-player empire, one of the minor empires, but the dynamic between these two is quite significant. And the fact that the Klingons were able to be successful is quite impressive. So, but it speaks to sort of the dynamics and the complexity about some of the combat. And if that's something that you like, then we can also dive into, at some point in the future, some of the other combats that we go through. This is a little bit of a test, And if it's something that you like, then stand by for good stuff. If it's something that you don't like, then please just put that in the comments. And of course, you can just skip ahead and get to the rest of the map reveal and the other information that we're going to be sharing. So with that said, let's go quickly to the map. So here you can see, again, if you're deciding to wet our whistle, so to speak, excuse me, the link is above, and you will see this if it occurs. So what we can see here on the map, if we take a moment, and I'll just zoom in here to describe this, you will see that there is this minor faction of Klingons right here, and this slew of ships. So long story short, the Hydrans sent a large fleet, as you can see distributed here, to attack the Klingon planet. And this Klingon planet had a number of sort of defenses and a fleet to defend it. And we'll walk through that here in a moment. But basically what this is, again, the player empire looking to take out this minor faction. And this is really the first time that we've seen a player faction, or sorry, a non-player faction successfully repel a player, with the intent that the player wanted to stomp this faction one turn. And I'll use a useful sort of comparison. I will show the comparison between the space tigers that the Klingons attacked and the Hydrans in this turn here now. So let's go through, and I'll just pull up real quick. Oh, I have to change the position of my head here. One momento. Slide over there. So here what we're looking at, obviously it's a Word file, but this is a step-by-step of what happened in the combat. So first of all, if you're unfamiliar with combat, then please feel free to go to the New Worlds playlist and check out the combat tutorial, which we've previously posted. And that will help you understand the sort of the bells and whistles, the step-by-step of how combat occurs in this game. So we will walk through it step-by-step here over the next 5 minutes or so. All right, so when what happens is we have a battle hex. So the ships from the Hydran fleet enter into the hex with the Klingon fleet. And so basically the Hydran ships moved into the Klingon hex where the homeworld is for that minor faction, and a battle hex was formed. Now, when you're approaching a base, like was the case with the Klingons, the attacking force has to offer an approach battle. And what that means basically is that the ships from the defending force can go out to engage or meet sort of the welcome committee, the guys who are coming to attack you. That can be very useful if you want to avoid damaging the base or some of the stuff that's at the planet or various other things, and especially if you have a big fleet to do so. However, in this case, and we'll see this in a minute, the Hydran forces, or the ships that the Hydrans had, greatly outweighed the Klingons, and so it was better for them to fight that fight at the base and use the base and the ground bases that they had to be able to defend themselves. So here's what that looked like. So the initial battle force was the Hydrans bought a YCC, so a Y-era command cruiser, which is important because it has a command factor of 9, meaning it can control 9 ships and itself. You've got GRNs, which are basically the non-command cruiser variant, so it's just a cruiser. Both of these ships are 3/6s. And then you've got 5 Vols and 2 Triad teams. Triad teams are prime teams. So in the normal baseline rules, they're referred to as prime teams. But you'll see them here for the Hydrans labeled as Triad teams. And then, so here's the kicker. In reserve, the Hydrans had 11 Vols. Vols are their frigates. And so what's really interesting about this is that this is the dynamic, right? You use the big ships to flush out your main battle line, which is sort of the ships that you're going to attack with. And then you keep the frigates as sort of flak or chaff. You use them to soak up damage and then swap them out every combat round for fresh ships, like you've got here with the 11 frigates he's got in reserve. Now, by comparison, the Klingons had one YBS, which is the base station, which has a 4-8 attack. 4-8 attack defense. 4 of the YPGBs, and what's important about that is that each one of those YPGBs brings 1 point of EW, electronic warfare, to the fight. Again, if you want to understand how EW affects combat, check out that combat tutorial. It lays it all out. And then, of course, we've got a D4, which is their cruiser, 1 F4C, which is just a command variant of the destroyer, which is a 3-4 ship, 2 F4s, again 3-4s, and then 4 E2s, which are their frigate. So generally speaking, when you look at the sort of gross distribution between these two fleets, the Hydrans have way more to throw at the Klingons than the Klingons have to defend. But the big advantage here is that, A, the Klingons are playing defense, so they have the base and the base, the ground, planetary ground bases, and they have the EW advantage. And we'll see how that plays out here in a moment. So first of all, we have to determine what the battle intensity rating is. And so the Hydrans choose the maximum they can choose, which is 4. And the Klingons choose the minimum they can, which at this point, with this technology level, is 2. There is a specific, in this particular game, because we're 4X and we're starting in the early eras, W and Y, there's a specific technology that you need to discover for command and control that allows you to get to Burr 1. So the lowest you can get at this sort of level of technology is Burr 2. So you add those two together, that gives you Burr 6, and then you get to the damage calculation. So there's again, if you're confused about what Burr is and how this all works, go back to the combat tutorial. The combat tutorial lays it all out. They've got the tables all there, and I don't want to go through and bore you with all that here and now. For this, we're going to go through just the sort of the results, and the results will show you how the different things or the factors kind of play in as far as the ships, the EW, and everything. So here we can see that in step 4, we're figuring out how much damage each side can generate. The Klingons can generate 29 points of damage, the Hydrans 30. So we roll the dice to determine the damage coefficient that relates to the table that you'll see in the combat tutorial. The Hydrans roll a 1d6 with a -2 shift. Because of the EW, there is a -2 impact on their damage coefficient on the Burr table. And the Klingons roll 1d6, and they get a 3. So as we scroll down here, so directed damage again, part of the combat tutorial you'll see, and how much damage is allocated based on how much they create. So the Hydrans take 10 damage in the first round, which means they have to cripple a bunch of these. They're labeled here as musketeers. They're not musketeers. They're the Vols, which are the frigates that he brought to the fight. So basically crippled 4 frigates with 2 minus points. The Klingons take 1 SID's worth of damage, which is they take 7 damage, so they soak up 4 of it with the 1 incremental damage system, which is the Starbase incremental damage system is what SID stands for. And so bases can soak up layers of damage without getting crippled. And so that's a YBS can soak up 1 SIDS before it takes the total 8 damage that it's got for its defense factors. And there's a little typo here. It says YSB versus YBS. And then they cripple an E2 as well. No ground assault, no retreat, no pursuit, go into round 2. So round 2, what ends up happening is that the Hydrans swap out the ships that they had crippled. So you can see here they have 4 Vols that were crippled, and then they replaced it with fresh ships in their battle line. Klingons, no cripples as of yet. They go into the next round. So, my mistake. The Klingons had 1 frigate crippled. So you go into the next step, which is determining the battle intensity rating. Again, 4 and 2, which comes up to 6. The compot for each side, 28 and 30. That's based on the fact that the Klingons had 1 crippled ship. And then you determine the battle coefficient, the damage coefficient, which in this roll for both is 9. So when you allocate the damage, the Klingons take 9 damage, which means they had to cripple 3 ships. And the Hydrans take 9 damage, and they have to cripple 3 ships. So basically, each side came out equal on that time. Going into round 3, this is the 3rd round of battle. Hydrans still have a full, fresh battle line. All their cripples now in reserve. They still have 4 ships in reserve that they can swap out. Klingons have, this is an advanced bit of the rules. The base in combat can use its repair capacity to repair ships in combat. This is an advanced rule. And what that does is it uses the repair capacity that you would then use in the following turn, but you can use it in the combat round, but you use it at a 1-to-1 ratio and it's done. And you can't use it to repair ships the next round. So you can see here, one ship is repaired, or sorry, rather 2 E2s are repaired by the crippled base, and they still have 2 cripples. So we determine the burr, again, 6 total. Compot is 2730, so in the third battle round, we're only at a difference of 2 for the Klingons. We figure out the damage coefficient, which is basically 7 for both. Again, keeping in mind the -2 shift. So basically what ends up happening here is you've got 1d6 minus 2 brings up a 2, 1d6 is a 3. And so what ends up, that determines how much damage, that number that we're looking at here. So the 7 is how much damage each side is taking. Hydrans take 7 damage, again, cripple 3 ships. Klingons take 7 damage, cripple 3 ships, including one of their destroyers, and we go into round 4. Now, what's important around round 4 is this is really the last round where the Hydrans are fresh. They have 10 crippled ships, and the and the Klingons have a couple cripples as well. But at this point, round 4, this will be the last round that the Hydrans really have a fresh battle line that they can use. Again, the burr is the same, total of 6. We go into the compot, which you can see it's starting to degrade over time. Klingons are at 24 versus the 30 for the Hydrans. And as we determine the damage coefficient, both sides take 9 damage. When we look at that, that means that the Hydrans cripple 3 ships, the Klingons cripple 2 ships, and there's no other ground assault, retreat, or pursuit. So now in round 5, this is now the 5th round of battle going on in this game, or in this particular battle. We now have the Hydrans with crippled frigates. So that's a huge determining factor. All their reserve ships are crippled, and the Klingons are now with basically all their ships, save their cruiser, is crippled as well. Again, the battle intensity is a 4-2. And we go into the total compot, which is a 23-27. Now, that's obviously significant from the 29 that the Klingons started at and the 30 that the Hydrans started at. So notice things are starting to degrade on both sides. When they determine the damage roll, Hydrans roll badly and get a 6. This is where EW really kicks in. And the Klingons get 8. So 6 and 8 respectively. Hydrans take a total of 8 damage, and they had minus points from before, so they have to cripple 2 ships. The Klingons take 6 damage, and they cripple a D4. Now, what ends up happening here is that the Hydrans choose to retreat. Again, when we talk about pursuit, this is something that basically the Klingons could chase down the Hydrans as they run away, but in order to do that, they need to have uncrippled ships to do that, and they don't have any uncrippled ships based on what just happened. So again, this is all spelled out in the combat tutorial, and basically the Hydrans, after getting all their frigates crippled, retreat from the battle. And at the end of the day, the Klingons successfully defend the homeworld, and the Hydrans have to retreat. At the end of the day, this is what happens. 16 Vols, or frigates, are crippled for the Hydrans. The Klingons have 1 SID's worth of damage at their YBS, and all their other ships are crippled. So, wow. Why is that really important? Well, I walked you through that so you could see and understand how battle occurs sort of on our side. And thank you very much to Daniel, our GM, for sort of spelling all that out. Let me go to the chat real quick and maybe answer some questions, as some of our players that are currently in the chat right now are also probably wondering about some of these details. So I can see some of the chat on the screen that I'm looking at, but let's look over on this side and let's see what, okay, lots of chat here. Let's start from the beginning and work our way down. So we've got Paul, we've got Bill, we got Daniel, we got Jim, Chuck is in the house. Chuck saying he offered his services to clean up the pirates, and away we go. Jim got beat up by another NPC. Well, you know, everyone likes to poke fun at Jim. Jim's correcting me with the YCC has a 4-6 attack and defense factor versus the 3-6 I was mentioning before. Thank you, Jim. And approach battle. Approach battle not wanted by the Klingons. The plan proceeds as thought. Jim, I was hoping for more, but the Klingons built a lot of YPGBs, which hurt a lot. Yep, they brought significant EW to the fight, and that really made a difference. Also interesting to note that none of those YPGBs were crippled, or they can't be crippled, they're just destroyed. None of them were destroyed in the battle, meaning they're all surviving for whenever the next round of battle occurs. And tactical goal was, at a minimum, I wanted to cripple the Klingon fleet, which is exactly what he did. So one of the interesting things about these kinds of battles, and this spells things out for when players start to fight players, is when you're attacking a hard target like a base with a supporting fleet and planetary ground bases, when you're doing things like that, or you're taking on a more robust assault, that the instinct might be throw everything you have at it at once and stomp them in one go. And there are certainly times and moments where the time sensitivity of taking that target is going to be important. In this case, the strategic way to move forward is to cause as much damage to the defending fleet as possible. Don't lose any of the ships that you built. Go back, repair, and attack again. Because in this case, the Hydrans' ability to repair, and we'll go to the map here in a second, and we can explore exactly all the repair capacity that the Hydrans have. But basically, the repair capacity of the Hydrans exceeds that of the Klingons, and of course, they can build more ships. So at the end of the day, the Hydrans can repair and return more ships to the next round, or like the next turn for another combat, or another battle hex and another combat resolution than the Klingons can. So regardless of sort of what happened, whether it happens sort of this coming turn or the turn after that, the Klingons are on borrowed time, and the Hydrans have executed what I would argue is a very well executed, although maybe not, ideal from their perspective, attack on the Klingon homeworld. Their objective: cripple their fleet, which they did, and then be in the position to be able to take the planet either the following or the 2 turns following the initial round of combat, which is exactly what they've done, and I believe is a great example of sort of how this plays out in this game. So again, I don't want anybody thinking that we all like to beat up on Jim and the Hydrans, but this is exactly how this should play out. And while we all may joke and have fun at the fact that the Klingons, repulsed the Hydran onslaught, and don't get me wrong, 16 cripples is a lot of cripples, but at the end of the day, the objective was to cripple the fleet. He did that. He didn't lose any ships. He's going to repair all that and then come back again and take them out. So the objective was reached. He didn't lose anything in the process, and he's set up for success in either the next turn or the turn after. So this is exactly sort of happening as per. But let's go to the map so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So here you can see we've got the Apocalypse fleet and all the other ships around here. So let's take a look. I'm going to sneeze 1 sec. I feel like I'm going to... Excuse me. All right. So let's take a look here. What do we got? We've got 2nd, 3rd, Royal, and HG fleet. So, geez, so many fleets. Goodness gracious. Okay, so 2nd. Let's pull 2nd over here and put it over my head. You may notice that the resolution is a little different this time around. I'm throwing this on my HD screen, not my 1440 screen. So hopefully it looks a little bit bigger for you and is a little bit easier for you to see. That's my objective here. So we got 2nd, 3rd, and Royal. So Hydrans, where are you? 3rd. Let's put that. We'll just put that there. And yep. And then Royal, Hydran, Royal. Noble fleets, maybe? Yeah. Okay, so there's Royal. And what was the other fleet that's there? HG. My goodness, look at all these fleets. HG. No, noble gases. What am I doing? Here we go. One of the challenges of using Vassal is all these sort of menus and windows and all these things. Noble fleets. Here we go. Oh, I lost it. It was already up there. Hydran, noble fleets. Okay. Royal HG. Am I missing something? All right, guys, in the chat, let me know. Am I missing something here? I'm obviously missing something. So, not enough coffee, or maybe too much. I'm not sure. Shiny fleets. What's going on here? Gold, Mercury. No. And where am I looking here? I did metal. I did shiny. Metal fleets. No. Okay. Well, this is what we got. So we got a grenadier. So these are the cruisers that he had in the fight. Mercury fleet. There we go. Thank you. Mercury fleet in the shiny fleets. There we are. Okay, we'll just put that there for right now. So Mercury. Okay, so we've got the YCC, a grenadier, and a grenadier. So he's got 3 of the cruisers plus his YCC with 2 prime teams on board. And then, of course, Royal Fleet has... So, sorry, he's got 5 total cruisers, 4 of them normal cruisers, grenadiers, and 1 being the YCC. So a total of 5 cruiser ships there. And then as we look back here, I'll just get rid of all of this so it's not polluting the screen. We've got all the various vols that need to be repaired. So we can see here at the YBS, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vols. There's another YBS here where we have another 3 vols, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ships, 6 of them vols, and 1 being his one of his survey ships. So he's redistributed his ships to the surrounding bases to repair them, and that's good. The challenge will be is that those bases can only repair 2 points of damage. Now, just as an example, I'm going to pull a vol here, and if I flip it, you will see that 1 vol, when you cripple it, goes from a 2-3 to a 1-2. So it's 1 point of damage to repair to make it a 2-3. So that means that he can only repair, I say only repair 2 frigates per YBS. So that means he can repair a total of 6 vols per turn, and then those 6 vols can then return into the fight. So based on what I'm seeing here, it would seem as though he's going to spend at least 2 turns repairing ships and then attack from there. That would be my observation. We'll see if Jim actually does that. The 4th is in Royal. First fleet is 2 crippled vols. Okay. So anyways, that's what that looks like. And very exciting as far as all the stuff that's there. It's pretty nutty as far as all the damage that's been done to our friends, the Klingons. And I say my friends because, of course, I'm Klingon as well. So let's start with the Fearsome 4 here as we start going around the clock and checking in on how everybody's doing. Let's start with the where's the EP? Start with EP. Boom. All right. So we can see here that the Carnivon are at 29.5. So 29.5 EP for their economy. The Hydrans are an even 3-0. The ISC are 33.5. I think that puts them at the top of the economic ladder. They are the big dogs in town. We'll have to see as we go through the rest of the factions, but I'm pretty sure that beats the Klingons, who have had the King of the Hill crown for quite some time. So the ISC are at 33.5. The Remans are at 31.5, and yeah, so everybody's floating around. So we got the ISC at 33, Carnivons, or I guess we'll go top down. ISC at 33.5, Remans at 31.5, Hydrans at 30 even, and then Carnivons at 29.5. Very, very interesting. Let's go to Fleet Cap and see how this is going. I have a sense that Fleet Cap is really going to be in the Hydrans' favor here. We'll see. I mean, they have a lot of cripples, but the Carnivon have 33 ship equivalents with a 75-157 split, which is pretty good. Pretty good. The Hydrans have 37 ship equivalents. Again, that doesn't surprise me. What's interesting to note there is the 56-122 split. I have a sense that that has a lot to do with all those crippled vols that we just saw, but we'll see how that goes. You can see here the delta or the difference between the defense factors of 122 and the total fleet cap of 142. That really sort of is represented by the cripples. The ISC have a 70-113 split with a total of 23 ship equivalents, and that's really interesting because, again, they're continuing to build ships, but they have consistently not exactly half, but almost half as many ships, definitely 2/3 as many ships as the other factions, and yet their combat effectiveness is sort of on par, which is very interesting. So Carnarvon 33, Hydrans at 37, ISC at 23, and I feel like I'm missing somebody. Where's the Remans? There we are. Remans, 38 ship equivalents. 38 ship equivalents. Woo! With a 109 to 158. The Remans popping 100 for their total attack factors. Watch out, Fearsome 4. The Remans are pounding those war drums. They are definitely the king of the hill when it comes to combat effectiveness. Look at that. Wow. Well, speaking of the Remans, let's start with them now and take a look at what they've got going on. All right. So let's just take away the ships and the bases real quick. So we can see that they're continuing to sort of explore and expand, and you can see a couple of other resources popped up here. Nothing too crazy. Their planets are still one planet is back up and running. This is a minor planet here, so 3 EP. This colony here, it doesn't really matter whether it's devastated or not. It's still going to produce 1 EP one way or the other. But of course, you can see they're both very unhappy because, well, they were stomped. We bring the bases back, and you can see the distribution of bases. You can see this one here is going to be completed shortly, and it's really expanding their ability to explore. Interesting to note that in the back end, or in the backyard, so to speak, the Remans are adopting the Hydra methodology of 3 hexes, and very, very interesting. Whereas along the border with the ISC, they're maintaining the 2 hex pattern of distribution. Bring back the ships, but boom. And here we can see we got a diplomat on the minor planet to be able to maybe make them happy, because that if they're happy versus hostile, which is where they're at now, it'll add a 0.5 EP to that to the economy from that. You can see that the the Klingon exploration cruisers are really pushing to the west, and of course this convoy is building this YBS here. This convoy looks like it just completed a YBS here, and Monster Squad. So that's probably called Monster Squad because not too long ago they had to deal with a monster, and these are the ships that dealt with it. I think I'm going to sneeze again in a moment here. Just give me 1 sec. It's tickling. Give me 1 sec. I got to blow my nose. I'll be right back. 1 sec. Well, the joys of live TV, so to speak. Sneezing and having to blow your nose. Exciting. I guess I should have like a little stinger or something to play in the meantime when I have to do stuff like that. That'll be something we'll have to move forward with in the future. All right, quick drink. And back to the Monster Squad. The Monster Mash. So, yes, Monster Squad, and then, of course, this name I can't pronounce, which is just hilarious. So Pacific and New Fleet doing their thing, and, of course, the Remans continuing to expand and explore their borders. Interesting to note here, they've also built a R&D team. Where's that R&D team going? Who knows? Maybe it'll go over to this wormhole, and they can start researching wormhole tech. If that's the case, that'll be interesting, because that wormhole... again, wormholes have a huge strategic value. It'll be very interesting to see how that pans out in the future as the game evolves. Yeah, we'll see it. We'll see what happens. And once they discover it, explore it, and then research it, they'll be able to unlock that technology. So as we go down, a couple of interesting things for the ISC. First of all, who is this in the top corner? What's going on there? We've got some Paravians that have popped up. Paravians on a developing planet, so that's a 2 EP planet. And we've got Owl Fleet and a YPGB, Planetary Ground Base, and of course a YBS. Let's just look real quick. The Paravians. And we look up their Owl Fleet. So we can see here on Owl Fleet that they have so all Y airships, YCA, 2 DDs, and 3 FFs. So this is significant because, and we'll get to the Klingons here in a second, but this is very similar to what the Klingons were dealing with their Kzinti, or Space Tigers. So very interesting to see this. This is a sort of a little bit more robust of a fleet, and especially with the Planetary Ground Base and the YBS, this will be a harder target for the ISC to take out. If they choose to attack it, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It'll be an interesting dress rehearsal for the ISC to see how they're able to manage combat in that way. So we'll see how that goes. Let's take away the ships real quick, and you can see that when it comes to access to that planet, we've got 1 hex that's giving them access to that the Paravian planet that is there. So sort of like a very narrow corridor. As we look at the rest here, we've got a couple of resources that, if I bring back the ships, yeah, it looks like that was discovered in the last couple turns. So a couple of resources there. Bring back the ships here for a moment. And you can see here there's a real push to explore to the west, really going towards the center of the map here. And I think I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure that this neutral zone has extended a little bit. As in the agreement between the ISC and the Hydrans, they've negotiated an extension of this neutral zone. I believe this neutral zone used to end either at Mike or, yeah, in the Mike column, but I think they might have extended it a couple hexes just to sort of like avoid any sort of imminent conflict, because the chitter chatter is pretty fun. Let's see here. We've got, like I say, if we take away the ships real quick. So this used to be a Paravian planet or Paravian colony. Now it's slowly recovering. You can see that it's now indifferent. That's the effort of I believe there's a diplomat in Justice Fleet. Let's just take a quick look here. Named echelons. Woo! This is quite the... yeah, I'll put this over here. What was the name? Justice. So Justice has... Oh, just a YCL. So Justice has a YCL and a YTUG. Okay, so they're just indifferent, which is good. But no conscious effort to sort of make them better. Truth Fleet is where the diplomat's at. And Truth Fleet is over here, over this developing planet, which is still hostile. So they're trying to, of course, turn them towards the light, as the Hydrans would say. Very interesting. So you can see it's very sort of interesting distribution. They've got the ISC that have all these YCLs and all these different fleets scattered around and trying to really sort of push the exploration bit. At this stage of the game, it's very interesting to see how the exploration is either slowing down or speeding up depending on the faction and sort of the circumstances they're dealing with. If you look at just the bases, and I'll fluctuate the bases here real quick so you can see, the distribution of bases really spells the sort of logistical success. And because in this game, as opposed to previous games, colonies provide supply. The colonies are providing the extension of supply for the real push of expansion that's going on here for the ISC. So very interesting to see that as they sort of use that as a lily pad to march forward. But if we look at the ships, there are obviously plans to be able to build out bases, as they have like a tug here, and they're working their way again further west, as the Pet Shop Boys would say. Let's continue down. Let's collapse this. There we go. Let's go down to the Hydrans. So we talked about the Hydrans already when it came to their big battle with Apocalypse. A couple of interesting things to note. We saw that the Tholians came through the wormhole, and they are now sitting pretty at one of the Hydran bases. What's going on there? I thought that the Hydrans hated Tholians. Why didn't they just blow them up? I don't know. Are we repairing the Tholian ship and sending them on their way? It seems very sort of antithetical to everything I understand about the Hydran perspective on Tholians. I don't know. Are we being heretics? Are we, Jim? Are you being heretical to your own doctrine? This is so against the grain. I don't know how to take this. I'm very confused. But a couple interesting things that have evolved here, again, pointing out the obvious. You'll notice a lot of blue. There's a lot of blue on this screen. Let's slide this over a little bit. So a lot of blue. We can see here that we've got the Orions have built out their YDK, Keska F, as well as there's a Orion base here. There seems to be an Orion base here. And another Orion base here. All these Orions keep popping up in Hydran space. What is going on? Are the Hydrans, are they doing something? Are they working some kind of angle? Do they have some kind of special arrangement with the Orions? I think this is a reasonable question that we all need to ask of the Hydrans. What is it exactly that you're doing with all these pirates in your space? Maybe it's a Mos Eisley situation. Perhaps the Hydran Empire is a hub for scum and villainy. Just saying. Anywho, with that thought, let's just take a quick look at their base distribution. You can see the dominant. Oh, interesting to note here that this base that is here isn't finished yet. So this base will probably complete this turn, and then they'll be able to start repairing. So if it completes this turn, it'll be able to affect repairs this turn. But off the top of my head, I can't remember if year 88 spring is turn 46, which is what we're looking at right now, turn 46. So we'll take a look. We'll see how this goes. But as you can see here, interesting to note that the base distribution, as the Hydrans have encountered opposition, has reverted to the 2 hex option versus the 3 hex option, which is what they used previously. Interesting to note, again, versus the Klingon faction here, it's a 2 hex. Along the border or approaching the border with the Carnivon, it's kind of 3 hexes. Very, very interesting to see. As we scroll down, we will take a look at the Carnivon. A couple of interesting things here. First, what's this Lyran ship doing here? This Lyran ship obviously came through this wormhole and is now in the neutral zone between the Hydrans and the Carnivon. I understood the Carnivon to be Y88 is turn 45, Jim says. So that would mean that if this is turn 46, that YBS would have completed. This being turn 46, we submit turn 46. So that means that on the turn that we're submitting based on this map, that base would be complete. So interesting to note here, as I feel like I'm going to sneeze again, that the Lyrans have sent a ship through a WCA, and it's not. I'm kind of curious. I would have expected the Carnivons to blow it up on sight, based on some of the rhetoric that we've seen in the storyline from the Carnivons. Long story short, the Carnivons had indicated that the Lyrans were a long lost oppressor that had sort of retreated through the wormhole, and that we've kind of found them again. So if that's the case, what's going on, Carnies? Are we not stomping out these guys and eliminating them from what we see? Very interesting. Very interesting. Also, another sort of like little thing you might have noticed is the Juggernaut faction, which has just shown up. What is going on there? Let's take a quick look at the minor fleets. Juggernaut looks like they're raiders. So this is a big window. I'm just going to try and shrink it here a little bit. Shrink it down. Okay. That's a little bit more manageable. So we can see here we have a CL, a DD, and 3 FFs. Long story short, that's a lot of firepower, especially when they are GW era ships. There are technologies around or associated with these ships that make them incredibly hard to deal with. The Carnivons, it would seem, have, well, they've got some visitors that they have to deal with. This particular fleet is within striking distance of at least one YBS. So we'll see if they move down towards that YBS and they can destroy it in one turn, especially with this kind of firepower, and what happens there. It would seem that the home fleet is in a position to be able to respond. Let's take a quick look at the Carnivon home fleet and see what they've got. Because, of course, remember, they moved the majority of their fleet to go deal with the Paravians. Let's see what they got. So we can see here that we have a YCC, which is a 3-7 ship for the Carnivons, a YCA, a 3-6, a couple of YDDs, looks like 2 of them. Yep, 2 YDDs at a 2-4, a couple of these drone bombardment ships at a 3-4, excuse me, 3 frigates, and of course 2 prime teams. So long story short, this doesn't look like it might be enough to stop the Raiders flat out. Regardless, if they use this fleet and attack the Raiders, the Juggernaut Raiders that is, chances are they'll certainly damage the Juggernauts, but they'll probably lose a couple ships in the process. So very interesting to see. Again, Jim makes an interesting point. He's talking about a different example, but when it comes to initiative, the Juggernauts will move before the Carnivons can. So in this example, if he's trying to stop them blowing up this base, he won't be able to do that. They'll move into that hex, blow it up, and go from there. Or there's all these other hexes they could randomly go to, so we'll see how that goes. But regardless, 1, 2, 3, 4, regardless of where they go, they are going to be within reach of this fleet. So whatever the Carnivons make as far as ships that they build in that turn, I would guess that they're going to send them with this home fleet to be able to try and stop the Juggernaut faction. They will most likely be successful, but the question is how much damage, how much pain are they going to suffer in the process? Chuck is saying, my orders were in before I got message that they are now complying with Carnivon orders. Okay, so basically when we're talking about this Lyran ship here, it sounds as if they went through the wormhole. There was an exchange between the Carnivons and the Lyrans, and then the Lyrans are abiding by the request of the Carnivons, basically get the beep out of our territory. And because it's crippled, it can't go back through the wormhole, so it's going into the neutral zone. So that's the best it can do in that case. So very interesting to see how that rolls out. So as we can see here, yeah, we've got the Fearsome Four going down the side of the map, and some very interesting developments there. Juggernauts in the Carnivon space, the Klingons being the David to the Hydrans Goliath, the Remans being the king of the hill when it comes to military. Like, watch out, they've got a fleet that will stomp you bad. And of course, the ISC has become the most the wealthiest sort of galactic nation on the map. Very, very interesting. Let's take a moment and just quickly go to the chat. Of course, we were just talking about all this stuff with regards to turn 88 spring, or year 88 spring is equivalent to turn 45. Lyrans have initiative and move first. So this is with regards to initiative in this game is, again, like any other sort of role-playing game, you move first. So in this case, the Lyrans with the faction with the lowest economy moves first. So the Lyrans have a lower economy than the Carnivons, so they move ahead of the Carnivons, and then the Carnivons move after. So it would seem that the Lyrans move through. There was a battle hex that was formed. Basically, they were told to retreat. They retreated, and away we go. So that's what's happened there. Chuck, my orders were, yeah, so his orders were in before he got the message, and then he's now complying with what the Carnies have asked. So that's good. That's good. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what do we got here? Well, speaking of the Lyrans, let's head over to the Lyran map, and we'll see what they've got. So a couple of interesting things. First of all, this is now the Lyrans and the Federation and the Tholians all married together. So very interesting. We can see that the Lyrans are continuing to expand their exploration into the top, sort of the northeast corner, and are continuing to expand. Let's take away the bases or the ships real quick. You can see that based on this base, they're using that as their sort of focal point to be able to do the primary part of their exploration with a 3 supply reach. But before I get ahead of myself, let's do the around the bases. Let's start with EP. All right, let's put this over my head. So we can see that the Carnivon. Okay, so the Carnivon are on this map because they've sent a ship through, I'm assuming. Where is this ship that the Carnivon have? Unless, oh, okay. So this is why they're on the map. So I'll just move this out of the way. So of course we can see this part here, which is based on the Carnivon map that we just saw. So that's why the Carnivons are on this particular EP distribution list. And then as we scroll back here, so we can see that the Carnivons have 40 EP according to this, which is different than what we just saw in the other map. So maybe that's off. The Federation have 27. Oh, that's just, it's not 40 EP. It's 4 EP based on what we can see on the map. So that's, disregard the Carnivons. Federation have 27 EP, which is good. The Hydran, Kzinti, Lyran, Tholians are at 34, and Lyrans are at 30.5. So I was all excited about how the ISC at 33.5 were the Kings of the Hill. It looks like the Tholians are the most economically dominant on the map with a total of 34 EP. 34 EP is pretty good. We'll see that in a second as to how that came to be. Let's take a look at fleet cap real quick. And we'll put that there. So we can see that the Federation have 18 ship equivalents, so starting to grow their fleet ever so slightly. The Tholians have 29 ship equivalents, but again, look at that attack defense factor split. It's 38. That's so small. So 38 to 111. The Lyrans have 30 ship equivalents, which is good, and a 64-139 split. So looking at the 64 relative to the 70-ish numbers that we saw in the Fearsome Four, we can see that they're sort of in the same ballpark. And again, with the number of ships, it's just a matter of like when they get to 35 ships relative to some of the other factions on the Fearsome Four, they'll have numbers that match that as well. So as we can see here, we've got the wormhole that they sent stuff through. They've got a base here now. They've got the Far Stars fleet, which if we take a quick look at the Far Stars fleet, we can see that there's a couple things here. One, they've got an R&D team, so they're doing research on the wormhole so they can use it. They have not only they have a Y and a W era destroyer and 2 frigates there to be able to support anything that will come through. And of course, there's another DD there as well. So there's a total of 5 ships plus the base, more than enough to be able to sort of plug that hole for anything that might come through, especially with, you know, how that goes. We'll see how that goes. Oh, I see there's a comment about a Russian bot. Hey, Russian bot, how are you? Let's report you unwanted. There we go. Bam. Russian bot is gone. So DD fleet based for the Lyrans. Here we go. All right. So fundamentally what we can see here is, again, what we were talking about, a push of exploration in the top right northeast corner. We have sort of the establishment of a connection between the Federation and the Lyrans. What's interesting about this is that if we look, just take away the ships real quick, they don't have supply to each other, which means that they decided to share, in the context of the role-playing, they decided to share navigational data, so they shared maps. And when they shared maps, it all opened up. And that's something we allow for in the role-playing aspect of the game versus, for example, the strict supply aspect of the maps. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how that plays out in another map a little later. So as we bring back this, we can see as we work our way down to the Federation, we can see that the Federation has a number of cruisers continuing to do exploration along this border. We can see that Feds have gathered quite the force to try and deal with this Sun Snake, which is going to be interesting. So let's take a look. We got 8th, 9th, and 10th. So the Feds have 8th. Let's move that over. We'll put that there. So a cruiser and a frigate. 9th, another cruiser and a frigate. And 10th fleet is another cruiser. We'll put it over here. Another cruiser and a frigate. So basically 3 cruisers, 3 frigates, and they're going to go try and take on the Sun Snake. I'm imagining. We'll see how that works out. But there'll be some kind of combined effort to be able to deal with the Sun Snake. And if for whatever reason the Sun Snake moves towards the base, which is here, you've got a lot of ships to be able to defend it. So it'll be very interesting to see how this develops when it comes to the Sun Snake next turn, because I imagine the Feds are going to stomp that thing hard and fast. As we scroll down this map, we can see obviously a couple of key things. One, a lot of challenges with converting this Kzinti faction over to the Federation. They're happy, but still not part of the Federation as of yet. Obviously, it's that time of year, and the pollen is in the air. It's like love is in the air. Love is in the air. One sec, gotta blow my nose. Woo! All right, back again. Wow, eyes are watering. Let's take a sip of coffee while we ponder this map. So we can see, of course, the Federation not being able to incorporate the Kzinti, but it's a no harm, no foul when it comes to this Carnivon planet, which is still a colony and indifferent right here, right now. So interesting. So the Federation have 2 wormholes you can see here. One they've got a base on already, which they've sort of plugged that hole. Looks like this was recently discovered. And yeah, it's I know I'm looking, I should be looking this way, but the actual screen is over here. So apologies for the misalignment there. So yeah, this wormhole, very interesting. And of course, the Federation exploration model is primarily using cruisers with prime teams. And of course, we've got a couple of YFELs doing their thing. No survey cruisers or ships, which is interesting. So very, very interesting. Let's go. Oh my goodness. I won't lie. I'm a little jealous of the Tholian player, because we saw that they had multiple, and we'll just take away the ships to make this a little less congested. So they have, let's take away the bases too. So basically these 2 planets they've incorporated. They've got a new colony, it looks like here, that they've either discovered or something grew into a colony. We've got a planet, ISC planet, which is friendly, indifferent, unfriendly here. And basically if the Tholians are able to incorporate this planet here with a 3, that's going to be it's a 3 EP bonus to their already 34 EP. So they're going to start leapfrogging. Excuse me. They're going to start leapfrogging everybody when it comes to economy. And as we've seen with the Klingons have been sort of experienced this earlier in the game, and it really creates an advantage. Obviously, having those extra EP to spend on things, but having that sort of ability to accelerate your economic development it is a big advantage. We'll see how this goes as this develops going forward, but fundamentally it looks like the Tholians are set up for some pretty good success. Good to note, though, their ships still suck, so if anyone wants to take action on that, then now's the time. Because if we wait too long, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be feasible to stop them. We still have, of course, this wormhole, which they've got a planetary ground base, which is going to be deployed. Convoy here looks like they're going to build a base here to plug this hole. You can see the Federation has a commercial convoy rather that's arrived at the Tholian home planet, which is going to provide them some extra EP. The R&D team's doing swaps on research and development, and of course you've got prime teams trying to make things a little bit friendlier with this Hydran faction. I'm assuming there's a diplomat here. Yep, there's a diplomat on this planet making things friendly, and the Gorn are being left alone for now. So we'll see how this goes as this develops, but I would say that if we were to look at sort of the different quadrants of the map, the fearsome four are relatively equal. When you look at all the different, economically, they're all similar. Militarily, they're all similar. It's a very equal playing field. When you look on the other side of the map, when it comes to the Lyrans and the Federation and the Tholians, there's much more of a disparity, not only between the actual footprint, but the economic advantage. The Tholians have been lucky, and they've taken advantage of that luck in a certain way. And so they are currently, well, they're reaping those rewards, and they are in a very advantageous situation. The Federation have been experiencing, I guess, what I would describe as some trouble, and they're just struggling a little bit to be able to get their footing and sort of get things moving. The Lyrans, I would say the Lyrans are basically a couple lucky rolls away from sort of catapulting themselves forward, and certainly when it comes to sort of the disposition that Chuck has, it'll be interesting to see how this sort of evolves. Because of his position, he can't really influence the Tholians too much, so it'll be interesting to see how this sort of evolves as we go forward. But with that said, let's do a quick check-in with the Gorn, and then we'll talk to two factions that are having some fun with each other vicariously, shall we say. All right, let's do real quick. Bang! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gorn hegemony. The Gorn are, I would argue, doing very well. Look at this nice globulous uniform exploration pattern. As was mentioned before, they have a YDN, which was discovered, so like a jackpot. Just like they had their W-era battleship that was discovered earlier, they also have a YDN that they've uncovered and they are going to repair. Interesting to note, let's just take a quick look at their EP. Up until now, the Gorn have been sort of trailing behind everybody, and as is sort of the trend as we see, things average out over time. The Gorn are now at 29.5 EP, which is really smack dab on average. Granted, the Fearsome Four are a little bit above, obviously the Tholians, but I mean the Federation, the Lyrans, other factions are now sort of, the Gorn have sort of gotten ahead of those folks. And that's just based on their ability to continue to explore and expand and really focus on that development. So long story short, the Gorn are doing good. Let's take a quick look at their fleet cap. We can see that they were operating in a deficiency to start with. They didn't have a lot of ships. Currently with a 20 ship equivalent, and they have a 3677 distribution. That is based on the fact that their W ships suck, and they are starting to roll out Y ships. So as the Y ships start to roll out, it'll be really interesting to watch this number and to see how that changes. The number of ship equivalents, A, and B, the split between the attack and defense factors to see how that goes. Because what's interesting to note here, it's almost a 50-50 split between attack and defense factors. As they build more ships and build up that ship equivalency, it'll be interesting to see. The good news is for them, and we'll see this in sort of the next turn, because the Gorn, this is not a displaced map. We know that the Gorn are below the Tholians, exactly where I will leave you to calculate as you watch the map. But basically they're below the Tholians and they're going to bump into them at some point. And when they do, the good news is the Tholians don't have a lot of offensive firepower. The Gorn will get that eventually, but as of right now, the Tholians don't have a lot of offensive firepower. So not a lot of threat. It's just a matter of who gets there first. It's like a land grab. So we'll see how that goes. Fundamentally, let's just take a quick look, take away the ships, and we can see this distribution of bases. So this is like textbook. Okay, hold on. We got another bot here. One sec. Let's just report this bad boy. And there we go. All right, so that fish message is gone. So we'll see how this goes. So you can see this is essentially a textbook example of how the hexagonal distribution goes. We have every 2 hexes, there's a base. Luckily here, this planet converted, and so is added to their EP with an extra 2, and is also providing supply, so it's an extra 3, or maybe if they have a 4 hex supply than maybe 4. But either way, they're extending their supply based on this planet. So you can see that there's a really good distribution here. So we bring back the ships. We can also see that he's pre-positioning convoys in spots where he's going to continue to build. So you can see that the 88 fall is going to complete that base this turn. And then he's in position with these other convoys to be able to continue building. One of the biggest constraints for the Gorn is they don't have tugs yet. And so, yeah, let's just see how this goes. So long story short, the Gorn are doing good. Let's take a quick look at their mobile fleet and home fleet just to see what they're building. Let's see. Home fleet. So the home fleet is sort of their vanilla fleet, all W ships that are not overly fantastic. And let's take a look at, what was the name of that other fleet? It was Mobile Fleet. Let's take a look at Mobile Fleet. Am I named fleets maybe? Okay. So here we go. The named fleets, we have the Y ships that they're starting to build. So we have a YCL, a 3-5. Really good with the 3-5 is because the 3-5, watch this, as I cripple it, I'm going to flip it, it becomes a 2-3. Why is that important? Because when this ship cripples, you can repair it in 1 turn at a base. A YBS, that is. So YBS can repair 2 points of damage. That ship can be repaired in 1 turn, which is good because some of the other cruisers that are out there can't be repaired in that same way. Of course, you got the destroyers, which is good, and the frigates, which is also good. So really starting to build out the Y-era fleet, which is good. And of course, he's got the YDN, which is a great command platform and has a 10 command factor. Super, super good. All right. We're going to start next with the Romulans and finish off with the Klingons. And I want you to tell me what you see on this map. I'm just trying to decide which side I should go. I'll go on this side. All right, here we go. The Romulans. Bum, bum, bum. What is going on here? So a couple of interesting things. Let's start with the EP. I will let you guys salivate at what you see on the map, but let's do a quick EP flip. EP for the Romulans. They are currently sitting at 30.5 EP. So again, right smack dab on the average, or like in the running for where we're all sort of floating when it comes to economics. So 30.5 EP, which is good. Let's take a look at their fleet cap. So we can see here the fleet cap is 34 ship equivalents with a 53-125 split. That's interesting because, A, 34 ships is good, but the attack factors are low. Now, we know the reason why that is because they have so many of these W ships floating around. And for the Romulans, their W ships are not very strong. Very similar to what the Gorn have as a challenge, which is their W ships suck. and that's predominantly what they have. Now, let's take a quick look at what they've got here. So the Romulans on home fleet, which I believe is where they've got the sort of the bulk of their non-W ships. So we've got a W-era Vulture, which is a dreadnought with a command factor of 10, so that's good. But then you've got the Kingbird, which is a command cruiser, and then a bunch of these other W-era ships. What else do we have here? We already sort of looked at a lot of these other fleets around here, which are predominantly exploration fleets. Let's just take a look at First Legion. I can't remember if we looked at First Legion before, but First Legion might be, no, still kind of par for the course. Again, W era, prime team, doing the exploration. So that totally makes sense. Let's take a look. Let's focus on 2 things. 1, ballpark. They're doing a great job of continuing to explore. You can really see this backyard exploration pattern that's occurring. Again, using the cruisers with the prime teams, splitting up the fleets. It's looking really good in that respect. You can see here, of course, there's the wormhole and the gravity well. I haven't really done anything with that other than the initial ship that they sent through. And the real sort of nugget here is the Kzinti. Now, what's interesting about the Kzinti here? Let's look at a couple things. First of all, let's take away the ships. And we can see that they've got like a 1-point access here to be able to get into the Kzinti space. The Kzinti are 4 hexes away from their nearest base. The Romulans' nearest base, that is. And we can reasonably assume that based on what we've seen here is that the Romulans have supply 3. With supply 3, they do not have supply connection, to the Kzinti, which means they don't have the visibility to see what the Kzinti see. Interesting to note, the Kzinti fleet, I'll bring it up in here in a sec, but the Kzinti planet is friendly to the Romulans. Friendly. Interesting. Let's bring up the fleet. We can see there's Night Fleet. Let's look at the Kzinti Night Fleet. And this is what they see. So they've got 4 frigates, 1 YCL, and a YCC. That's what they see. Very interesting. We'll see. Oh, whoops, sorry. Of course, you can't see that. My mistake. 4 YFFs, 1 YCL, and a YCC. So that's what they see. Now they've got their Rolandus fleet, patrol fleet, and 2nd Legion. So patrol fleet, I mean, these are all exploration fleets if I remember correctly. Let's quickly pull up Rolandus. Again, this is a survey ship. You see a survey ship with the white diamond with a escort. You got patrol fleet. Let's see here, patrol fleet or patrol detachment. My mistake. Interesting to note here that patrol detachment is crippled. Crippled ships can't explore. Why are they crippled? And why are they sitting there? Something may have occurred that caused them to be crippled. They're going to have to sort of fall back and repair. Very interesting to note. 2nd Legion. I'm assuming that the legions are the sort of more militant arm, but looks like I was wrong. Again, more cruisers with prime teams to conduct exploration, which is par for the course. And then, of course, South and East Fleet. Let's quickly look at South. This is more the same. WR cruiser with an escort. And East Fleet, which is, I'm going to assume, exactly the same. So what we're looking at here is a distribution of W-era cruisers with prime teams conducting research or conducting exploration. Nothing too exciting. What's exciting is what I'm going to show you next. Ba-ba-ba. Wow. I can see somebody. Now, why is this happening, and why is it different than what the Romulans see? You can see here that the Klingons have a base station within supply distance of the Kzinti base. That means that there is supply connection and the maps open up. So because the Klingons have supply, and you can see based on the fact that I have supply to the Kzinti and the Kzinti have supply to me, the maps open up and I can see what they see. So because the Kzinti don't have the shared map with the Romulans, they can't see everything the Romulans see, and vice versa. But what we can do is we can see the space that's already been explored, and they can detect what's on the other side there. So based on what we saw on the other map, there should be a fleet detected here. So this is a question for Daniel, our GM. There should be a fleet in this hex relative to the Kzinti. And then, of course, there's Rolandus fleet here. You can see that what's happened here is this is the Space Tigers get poked. The Klingons attacked the Kzinti last turn. So it'll be interesting to see. Oh, my nose is getting itchy again. Where's Knight's fleet? So this is different than what the Romulans see. So we can see here, this is based on the combat that occurred. They have a crippled YCL, a crippled YFF, and they have 3 fully functional Y frigates. In addition, they have 3, count 3, I'm not excited about this, Y planetary ground bases, And what's interesting to note is in the combat that I had with the Kzinti, they did the same tactic that the Klingons used against. The Kzinti had the same tactic that was used by the Klingons against the Hydrans, which was the fact that they used their repair during their turn. So because they used that repair during their turn at a 1-to-1, they don't have the capacity to repair this turn, whereas the Klingons do. So let's take a quick look at what we got here. So we got a couple F4s, E2. We got Joint Task Force Alpha. We'll show you what that is. Joint Task Force Alpha. So this is, here, I'll get rid of that. Boop. So Joint Task Force Alpha, this is some cripples that were incurred from the combat. So we have a D3, which is a W-air cruiser, and then an E2, which is Y-air frigate. In addition, we have down here, we have a base that's being upgraded to a YDK. And Battle Group Blood. Let's just take a quick look at Battle Group Blood. I have a feeling there's a couple little typos that are going on here because, well, I have to have a chit-chat with the GM afterwards. But Battle Group Blood, just to give you a sense of sort of the damage that was received. Where is it? Battle Group Blood. So Battle Group Blood has a number of cripples here. You can see there's 4, count them 4 crippled E2s, and there is a crippled F4. And then, of course, there's 2 D4s there. And then there's Joint Task Force Gamma, which we'll pull that up here in a second. And we also have a crippled E2 there. So one of the things that was in my contingency orders or my battle orders was the retro and distribution of repair to the surrounding bases. So, for example, there was supposed to be a crippled ship here to be repaired, crippled ships there to be repaired, and sort of scattered in such a way to make the best use of the bases that are sort of within striking distance of the Kzinti planet, which is what's going on right now. So it'll be very interesting to see how this evolves going forward because, again, the Kzinti used up their repair capacity. I haven't. I get to repair and then attack them. It'll be really interesting to see how that battle goes forth. I don't expect that I will necessarily win the next round of battle. I think I will suffer damage and get crippled, and so will they. But I expect fundamentally that the Klingons will have to attack this at least one more time. We'll have to attack it, at least 2 more times to be able to win. If things go our way, Klingon way that is, then maybe we'll get it in 1 turn. But I expect predominantly it's going to be a 2-turn affair. So we'll see how that goes. Very interesting to see how this sort of all evolves. Very, very interesting. So other than that, let's just take a quick look at the EP and fleet cap to be able to round this off. You can see that the Klingon Empire is at a 32.5 EP. Again, that puts us behind the Tholians, who are, again, the kings of the castle. 32.5 puts us behind the ISC and the Tholians, so we are now 3rd in the order of precedence from the economy perspective. Let's take a quick look at fleet cap. This number won't be as pretty as I'd like it to be because of all the cripples that we've suffered, but we have 28 ship equivalents, a 60-105 split, and you can see that the fleet cap is 122. So fundamentally, that 60 should be a little bit higher, and that's just based on the distribution of ships that we've sort of suffered, the damage that we've suffered, that is. You can see here, fundamentally, we have a diplomat ship working on making things a little bit happier down here. Exploration continues to occur sort of around the edges. You can see that we're continuing to explore sort of along this track here. Nothing too exciting, generally speaking. I don't have any more pirates as opposed to the Hydrans. We have the same number of pirates, so to speak. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's where things look and how things are going when it comes to the Klingon Empire. All right. So what have we seen today? We have seen the battle of David and Goliath, which is the Klingon minor faction versus the Hydran player faction, and how that battle occurred. I've shown you at least the after effect of the poking of the kitty cats, shall we say, of the Klingons attacking the Kzinti, and what's happened there. Fundamentally, the same type of thing happened as with the Hydrans. The Klingons came in with a number of frigates, took a lot of flak damage, and then retreated. So that's fundamentally how that battle went down. The big difference, again, is that the YPGBs of these non-player factors are really providing a huge difference when it comes to being able to take out these targets. Also, at least from my perspective, I'm dealing with a YDK. A YDK is a much more sort of, it's a harder target to take out because instead of 8, it has 16 defense factors, which just makes it that much harder to take out. It's an 8-16 versus a 4-8 split. So it's a much harder target to take. The real thing is once I can get to a point where I've taken out the surrounding or supporting ships, that's the difference. Once we take out the supporting ships, that makes the difference. And then we can go from there. So we'll see how that goes and move that ball forward. Morning, Terry. Terry has joined us from the grand old Down Under. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You've seen, of course, the Fearsome Four, the Tholians. What do we want to call them? We got the Fearsome Four, the Terrible Triad, and then the three. We'll call them the three amigos: the Gorn, the Roms, and the Klingons, who are off on their own. So between the 4, the 3, and the 3, that makes a total of 10. That's the 10 players that you got on the map, and that's how things are going. What's going to be really interesting in the coming weeks is, as you saw, the Klingons are effectively bumping into the Romulans bumping into the Klingons, and there are going to be more folks that we bump into as we go on. So how is that all going to play out? How are people going to play nice or not nice with each other? How are things going to work out? We shall see as the turns evolve as we go forward. In the meantime, if this is something that you've liked, you've enjoyed, you appreciate watching, as we go forward with the sneezing and the blowing of the nose to be excused, please consider subscribing, supporting the channel. We are on a goal or a mission to hit 500. Of course, we're at the time of this broadcast, I think we're at 156. The idea is that we're unlocking features in YouTube to be able to sort of better engage and provide you value here on this channel. We're fundamentally building a community here of individuals who are enjoying all things Star Trek, enjoy turn-based strategy or just strategy games overall. So if you like sci-fi, if you like Star Trek, if you like strategy, then this is a place for you to be able to come in, have fun, and enjoy. Keep in mind, watch us over the next coming weeks as we're going to be launching or rolling out a sort of recruitment drive of a couple of added factions that we're going to be introducing into this game, as well as in the future down the road, we're going to be recruiting for another campaign that we will be starting concurrently with this one. So we'll have more than just one game going at a time. That was the sort of the mission of this entire initiative, was to be able to build out that player base, provide more opportunity to play, and really have fun with this community of players that we have. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, then please consider subscribing, join our community, and of course, if you don't mind, supporting our caffeine habit would be greatly appreciated. You can see that support us at Ko-fi. It's coffee.com/newworlds. You can head over to that link and either buy us a one-time coffee or provide us a little monthly support. Either way, any of that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Bye for now.